Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome back to Palette Swap, where I rank the costumes and character designs of your favorite fighting games. And normally this is where I would make a joke about not being a Capcom guy, but Street Fighter VI is fun. I think I'm a convert. Today, we're looking at a character who's popular for very normal and appropriate reasons, Juri Han. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Juri is and what we should be looking for in her character designs. Growing up, Juri had the perfect life. She was a straight-A student, a taekwondo prodigy, and filthy rich since her dad was a successful lawyer. Unfortunately, this is the Street Fighter series, where no one is allowed to have parents for long. Her dad made the mistake of trying to shut down Shadaloo, a criminal organization run by the villainous Mike Bison, and Shadaloo responded by killing him, killing his wife, and damaging Juri's left eye. Consumed by vengeance, Juri became a ruthless assassin. She even underwent an experimental procedure to replace her damaged eye with a feng shui engine, which granted her superhuman speed and interior design skills, all in hopes of one day killing Bison. But then someone else did. Juri could find no catharsis in Bison's death, only rage and misery that she missed her chance for vengeance. Robbed of her life's purpose, she's now an aimless criminal who can only feel joy by inflicting pain on others. Juri was originally envisioned as a dark reflection of Chun-Li, so she shares some traits with the First Lady of fighting games. Like Chun, she wears her hair in twin buns, but hers are larger and more angular, almost resembling horns. She also has spiked bracelets, which I think suit a sadistic punk like Juri better than they do Chun. Even more so than Chun, Juri focuses on kicking, so the designer smartly drew attention to her legs. The top half of her silhouette is quite slim, as she's wearing nothing but some spider-shaped body tape, a Chinese undergarment called a do-do, and some gloves. Her lower half is much bulkier, as she's wearing big baggy chaps and a long belt with a chunky skull-shaped buckle. Her chaps also have a stripe running down each side, making them slightly reminiscent of a traditional taekwondo uniform, or dobok. Her color palette emphasizes her legs even further, as her pants are white when everything else is black, purple, or pink. The result is that the most dangerous parts of Juri draw your eye. I do have some minor nitpicks. I prefer if the spikes on her bracelets were a different color so they stood out more, and I think she could do with some foot pads to match her gloves, but it's still a 9 out of 10. As usual for Street Fighter episodes, I won't be covering alternate colors unless I find them particularly noteworthy, which isn't the case for any of this costumes. Her first ult is a casual look, and quite a plain one at that. It doesn't look bad, but there's nothing unique or interesting about it. 4 out of 10. Her second ult leans more into a martial arts influence. Her suit is mostly skin tight, but her sleeves flare out at the end, and she's wearing a long sash with a yin-yang symbol, referencing the feng shui engine. Something neat about this costume is that it taps into an ÅrachniD aesthetic without actually using a spider motif. The netting along the sides of her suit is reminiscent of a web, and the strings and metal ring on her back form a very similar shape to the body tape of her default costume. The color palette is also quite similar to her default, although the darker tones are more prominent. Once again, my only complaints are nitpicks. She's wearing the same shoes as her last ult, which makes both of them less unique, and her legs aren't as emphasized as they could be. But overall, this is a solid design. 7 out of 10. Her vacation costume appears to be some sort of dancer's outfit, but the theme isn't super clear. Her hair is down, which is a first for Juri designs, and the spiderweb scarf wrapped around her arms adds some pizzazz. It also draws attention to her legs via bright purple thigh highs. 6 out of 10. Her wild costume is inspired by a cheetah, likely because of her feng shui super speed. Some cat ears take the place of her usual buns, which is cute. There are bladed weapons on her back and thighs, making her look like some kind of ancient tribal warrior. Her palette is cyan, magenta, and orangish yellow, which forms an unorthodox triadic color scheme. 6 out of 10. Her horror costume turns her into a medieval jester, which fits her playful personality. She once again has baggy pants and a form-fitting top, and her hat mimics the silhouette of her iconic hair. I appreciate that they attempted such a complex palette, but the placement and balance of colors is real off, and the more I look at it, the more it annoys me. So let me break this down. The main part of her suit is fine. Half is blue and purple, and the other half is burgundy and pink, and the pattern flips on her lower half. So far, so good. Her shoes are both burgundy, which throws off the asymmetry, but that's not a big deal. But then, her hat only uses 3 colors, and her collar only uses 2 colors. And worst of all, the third of her collar that's unique color isn't even in the middle, it's off to the side for some reason. I think they were trying to match the pattern of her hat and then realized that part of it would be burgundy on burgundy, so they just gave up. It's baffling, because there are so many options that would have looked better than this. Why didn't they just make this part blue? Or better yet, make this part purple and this part burgundy? Or better yet, just give her hat and collar an even number of points so they didn't have to deal with it! I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. 4 out of 10. Street Fighter Cross Tekken reuses Juri's Street Fighter IV design. Since I don't take graphics into account, the same score applies. Not that graphics are very different anyway. However, it does give her a new alternate costume. I think it's supposed to be a take on a nurse's uniform judging from the hat and cuffs, but the rest of the outfit is a seemingly random arrangement of latex and ribbons. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. It's not awful, but it's not good, and the nurse theme doesn't contribute much. 3 out of 10. Street Fighter Cross Tekken also gives everyone swap costumes inspired by characters from the other series. Juri's is based on Zafina, who's also pale, flexible, and spider-themed. Juri's version of the outfit has a darker color palette due to the additions of black sleeves under her arm wraps and black capris under her skirt. There are also some tiny details to make it grungier, like metal buckles on her belt and top as well as visible stitching on her skirt. This is one of the simpler swap costumes, but it works well. I'd just like to see a bit more of Juri's aesthetic in there. 8 out of 10. Juri received one of Street Fighter V's more substantial redesigns. She's wearing a skin-tight biker suit with a tall collar, and she has an eye patch over what used to be the feng shui engine, because Bison ripped it out of her face. I like aspects of this design, such as the complex layers and patterns on her suit, but it's a lot more generic than her debut appearance. It doesn't mirror Chun-Li's design, it doesn't emphasize her legs, it doesn't resemble a dobok, and the only slightly creepy imagery is a spider symbol on her back, which you can't even see most of the time. Aside from the color palette, nothing about it screams Juri. Could just as easily be a costume for Cammy, or Crimson Viper, or Nina from Tekken. I made a quick edit to see what this costume would look like with her classic chaps and belt, and I think that alone helps a lot. This costume doesn't look bad by any means, but it's a step down in terms of uniqueness and iconic imagery. 5 out of 10. Her story costume resembles a horse jockey's uniform. It does draw attention to her legs, but mainly her thighs, not the parts of her legs that she actually attacks with. That said, I like the tall boots on Juri. The decorations in her hair are slightly different from her default costume, which is a small touch that helps it feel unique. 5 out of 10. Her battle outfit is another casual look, but significantly better than Street Fighter IV's. It resembles workout attire, consisting of a crop top, yoga pants, and these weird single-finger glove thingies. Her hair is down like in her old vacation costume, but now her bangs are dyed pink, which I think is a great look for Juri. This is a simple design, but it's the good kind of simple. It does what it needs to and doesn't overcomplicate things. 7 out of 10. Her Halloween costume is some kind of devil or succubus, which is very fitting for Juri. The outfit itself isn't that devilish. The horns, tail, and edgy color palette put in most of the work, but it looks good, so I don't mind. I like how the horns mimic the shape of her classic hair, and I also like how it gives her a unique skin tone and eye color. I prefer the stockings to be a bit more prominent, and I think the gloves are a little plain, but neither of those drag the design down too much. 6 out of 10. Her holiday costume is actually pretty similar to her Halloween costume, but it turns her dress into a two-piece and swaps out the hood for a tiny hat. This isn't that unique of a design, but it's festive and fitting enough for Juri. I like how much floofy fur there is around the collar. 5 out of 10. Juri's school uniform is perfect, and that's not a word I throw around lightly. In keeping with her edgy and rebellious personality, it's a punk-inspired outfit with chunky goth boots, ripped fishnets, fingerless gloves, studded bracelets and chokers, black lipstick, and striking multicolored hair. I think this is the most detailed costume in the entire game, maybe the entire series. I mean, just look at all the piercings and patches and pins. There's a lot going on here, but not in a busy or cluttered way. The black, white, and red color palette is sharp, and it makes her teal and magenta hair stand out even more. This is an easy 10 out of 10. Capcom, please bring this back. I'll buy your scummy in-game currency. I don't care. As if it needed any more points in its favor, it has some solid alternate colors. The default is my favorite, but I'm also a big fan of this monochromatic palette. For some reason, her nostalgia costume isn't an exact copy of her classic look. It adds this dark purple jacket that's mostly hanging off her shoulders. It looks alright, but it detracts from her bottom-heavy silhouette. That said, there's a cheat code to remove it, so it's a totally harmless addition. 8 out of 10. Her swimsuit is weird. She's wearing a leather jacket and boots, so it doesn't look like swimwear. It just looks like she went out for a motorcycle ride and forgot her pants. Just don't know what the thought process behind this costume was. I wish they had just given her a biker outfit and a bikini instead of trying to mash them together. 3 out of 10. Her Lilith cosplay looks good, but as I've discussed in previous episodes, I'm not that interested in these one-to-one recreations. I prefer something that was based on Lilith but still unique to Juri. 5 out of 10. Her mech costume turns her into a cyborg. I like all the different patterns and textures, but I think there is a missed opportunity to make her silhouette less humanoid. I know they can't make drastic changes to her model for the sake of hitbox clarity, but she mostly just looks like a person in a robotic suit. They could have messed around with her proportions a bit more. Also, I'm not sure what the glowy things on her legs are supposed to be. However, this is a creative and visually appealing design. 7 out of 10. I prefer the alternate colors that give her unnatural robotic skin tones. My favorite is the Hatsune Miku palette, because it looks very clean and futuristic. I would bump this version up to an 8 or 9. Her true boss costume is a really cool concept. The idea is that Juri has defeated the series' final bosses and taken some of their clothing as trophies. Her hat is Bison's, although she's replaced his Shadaloo symbol with a spider, and her waist wrap is supposedly Seth's cape. I say supposedly because it doesn't really look like it to me, unless Seth has some other cape I'm unaware of. She doesn't have any heirlooms from Sagat or Kuma or Gil, which makes sense, because unlike Bison and Seth, she doesn't have any connection to those characters, but it would have been neat to see. Despite not capitalizing on the concept as well as it could, this costume looks great. I personally prefer the school uniform, but I think this is still worthy of a 10 out of 10. Her spider costume is based on the aesthetic of Bosuzoku, or Japanese biker gangs. Juri is a motorcycle enthusiast, so this makes a lot of sense as a costume for her. Bright colors and long coats emblazoned with kanji are staples of Bosuzoku fashion. I did my best to translate the kanji on her coat, but I wasn't very successful. All I know is that it has something to do with fighting. Not a fan of how much bright, saturated lavender there is in this design, but that's accurate to the style it's emulating. 6 out of 10. Last and possibly least for this game is her professional outfit, which once again turns her into a nurse. Looks a lot more like an actual nurse's uniform this time around, but I think the designers might have overcorrected, because now it's too plain. I do like her long, messy pigtails though. They remind me of Tira from Soulcalibur IV. 5 out of 10. That brings us to Street Fighter VI. Her new design is mostly a callback to her classic look. The differences are that her hair is asymmetrical and multicolored, she's wearing a white vest, the spider tape covers more of her body, her belt features a yin-yang instead of a skull, she's wearing foot pads, the colors of her pants have been swapped around, and she has some cyan accents. I like most of these changes, especially the hair, but I don't think the vest contributes much. It's a strange shape, and all it does is distract from the rest of the costume. I also prefer the old color placement for her pants. 9 out of 10. It's a shame they didn't include her classic palette as an alternate color. Her costume too is nearly identical to her Street Fighter V design, but she no longer has a layer of black under her biker suit, which was the original plan for Street Fighter V before it got censored. To compensate, her suit is zipped up a lot higher. I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I prefer the old version. The black added some nice contrast to her palette, and the deep V gave the suit a more interesting shape. 4 out of 10. Lastly, her costume 3 is for some reason a pink onesie. This is such a bizarre concept, and I can't really decide if I like it or not. I will say, the designers definitely made the most of it. There's a spider on her back, so it's not totally divorced from her usual style. Her hair is all tousled as if she just rolled out of bed, which is a fun touch. I would never choose this costume, especially because it costs almost as much as an entire character, but certainly a unique look, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. And with that, we have ranked every single Juri costume. Of all the Street Fighter characters I've covered so far, hers have been my favorite. I like her style, and since she wasn't introduced until Street Fighter IV, the designers aren't as hesitant to experiment with her as the World Warriors. That's just my opinion, so what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Episode 36 is going to be a little different than usual. Now that Tekken 8 has released, I'm going to make a video going over all the new costumes for characters I've already covered. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.